Time. It's all about a matter of time. Listen very carefully. This is quite odd. As a 2x leverage long, they released the XRP ETF right at the best time. So you guys remember when XRP went to $1.61 here, right? Just a couple days ago. They released the damn leveraged long ETF at the precise moments of when XRP supposedly, or some people are now calling it a bottom. That's quite odd because we did say we have a similar interesting feeling about the Coinbase derivatives going live end of this month, right? And what I think will happen is that's going to get timed at the bottom as well. If we have one more drop lower, right, and then they're going to pump it extremely hard, and this was just a test. Look at this. The volume on the XRP is impressive. These are big numbers for day 2 to 4, especially for a 2x in a whack market. Child's play versus Bitcoin ETFs, of course, but really strong. This thing is finding an audience quickly. Again, guys, it seems like the money wants to find its own pathways, right, to flood in. So the more ETFs, especially now, this is a 2x long. That's what, right? A 2x long XRP ETF. And people were like, oh, I need to get on this, especially when the prices were so down. Because obviously XRP wasn't just going to die that day. There was a lot of support coming in, a lot of money. And it seemed like it found one of the pathways into this ETF, right? Now, the CEO, he stated that the XRP ETF was our most successful launch day to date for fund we have ever done. Right, so all these people are excited, guys, and let's listen to what he has to say.
Jump right in here. You did just launch the first XRP ETF in the U.S. I'm just curious, how did day one go? I know there's still a little bit of time until market close here as we record this, but what have you seen thus far?
A terrific response. There was overwhelming excitement. I think a lot because we were overlooked. I mean, we made our filing and it was largely ignored. We were the only people to file with a ticker, and for whatever reason, it just was passed over, and it kind of took people by surprise. We filed as soon as we could after the old SEC regime left, and the 75 days effectiveness took place on Saturday. So we seeded yesterday, which was Monday, and launched today. I think it's almost a couple 100,000 shares. It's been a terrific, very successful launch. Our most successful launch day to date for any fund we've ever done.
And give us just the.
And guess what? The Coinbase derivatives launching 21st, I think, of this month, right? On the 21st. So I had a feeling 2 weeks ago or whenever there were talks about the Coinbase going live with their own plays, guys, for XRP, that is. I had a feeling something similar would happen. There's going to be bullish activity, right? So I think this was just a test. I do feel like there's one more drop. I'm gonna just say to $1.30, okay? And then as soon as that is in, there's going to be an extreme rally towards the upside. And I feel like all these dots are connecting, right, in place for that day, probably in a week or two from now. Now, from Bojack, it gets even more crazier because Forbes is telling the world how to buy and sell XRP. Forbes is literally saying how to buy and sell XRP, a simple guide, digital assets, right? So that's insane, guys. XRP is a cryptocurrency that has generated significant visibility since coming into existence in 2012. Focused on payments, XRP is a native digital asset of a decentralized network known as the XRP ledger, which can settle transactions in between 3 and 5 seconds. Why should we even buy XRP? Right? They're saying that, hey, it has a very strong community. Over here, they actually talk about how to store your XRP as well, guys. And they literally give us a step-by-step guide on how to buy XRP. So why are they even doing this in the first place? Again, I think it's because they're preparing the world that this demonic run that will happen, that will induce, that will ensue soon, guys. It's going to get ridiculous, right? Just because of Jerome Powell printing so much money. So much money is going to be flooding in, and that's why we're seeing ETFs, right? Pathways of money for the money to even flood in the first place, right? So it's going to get ridiculous, guys, and this is why we're seeing, it's like they're setting the stage, right, for the next couple of months before things get pretty insanity. and safely storing your XRP. That this is quite important, guys. You can store your XRP wallet using XRP using wallets, both hot and cold, right? The best option here is, well, Ledger, in my opinion, not financial advice, but buying, I would go with Uphold, because I do have an Uphold affiliate link down description below, and there's 0 fees if you guys are trying to buy some XRP. But I would honestly wait, not financial advice, I would wait till one more dump, just to get the most for your buck. Now, the most bang for your buck. But from Brad Garlinghouse, he just tweeted out a couple hours ago, great to be back. With Liz Clayman today to chat about Ripple's historic acquisition of prime broker Hidden Road and what this means for the broader crypto market. As the NAC takes a much needed pro-innovation approach with new leadership, we are moving past the SEC's war on crypto and entering the next phase of the market, true institutional flows integrating with decentralized finance, right? So this is the interview, guys, and it's about on the wrong side of the law, right? SEC guesser, that is. So let's watch this, guys, and let's see. This is my first time watching it with you guys, so here are my thoughts.
Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse. Ripple's XRP is the native token of the decentralized blockchain XRP ledger. Litigious. As recently as our conversation with Hester Peirce of the SEC, one of the commissioners, she said that the lawsuit against Ripple was still hovering. Where is it now? Because last night we started to hear that it may be disappearing.
So we have reached agreement with staff, and usually what happens is you reach agreement with staff makes recommendations to the commission, and then the commission votes. So anytime we make announcements about that, we are clear that we've reached agreement with staff. The commission hasn't yet voted, but what we've agreed is to dismiss and move on. We're actually getting, the SEC we had put in escrow a potential fine of $125 million. We're actually taking most of that back, including the interest that had been earned along the way. And I think it's just evidence that the Gensler SEC was on the wrong side of the law. And thanks to the new leadership at the SEC and in the White House, I think we're seeing a much more constructive, much more pro-innovation. We want these industries to grow at home.
Look at that, guys. Gensler has been on the wrong side of the law, and Brad wasn't lying when he told us, hey, we will be on the right side of history, which is very important, but even greater is law, because you're doing it, what? Legally. It's called legal money, right? So we're in good hands, guys. If you can't see it by now, then I don't know what else to say, because this is Brad Garlinghouse, Ripple, CEO at Ripple, right? Not CEO of XRP, but CEO of Ripple. And all the other shady players in the space talking about possibly Bitcoin is anonymous. Its leader is anonymous, right? And Vitalik, I don't know, he's been going on side quests supposedly.
You say most of the $125 million you had parked in that little fund in case of the worst case scenario. What's left?
The SEC is going to end up with $50 million. The U.S. government's going to get $50 million. We even talked about making that available in XRP. But look.
Oh, wow. So the SEC is getting $50 million. But honestly, I think they're going to get it in XRP. You know why? And when they do, guess what's going to happen? They're not going to sell it because now Trump wants it, right? They're like, oh, you may as well just keep it, right?
$50 million. We even talked about making that available in XRP. But look, at the end of the day, this is a major step forward. You know, I think if you kind of zoom out and look at this, the Trump administration is absolutely living up to their promises. You got David Sachs leading the effort at the White House, Scott Bessent, and certainly now Paul Atkins getting confirmed, I think, yesterday.
Yes.
These are people who are focused on how do we make sure this is an industry that can thrive at home with sensible regulation, common sense. And that's not what we had for the last 4 years.
And if you guys noticed that when the Trump administration came into play, crypto prices have been going down. But if you look behind the scenes and what's been happening with laws and regulations, right, and this crypto sphere, they're actually doing something great for the future, right, in the long term. Short term pain for long term gain.
What would you hope to see as common sense regulation? Have you talked to David Sachs, and what have you said? Hey, David, this at least needs to be front and center.
The two things that have the most momentum in Capitol Hill are around a stablecoin legislation and then something we generally call a market structure bill. Stablecoin legislation, because we haven't yet had clarity about at what point are banks involved, not involved, what kind of licensing is appropriate. Ripple recently launched our stablecoin under a New York trust license through the New York Department of Financial Services, which we think is kind of the gold standard for how to be regulated in this market. But having federal legislation that is providing clarity for the big players like USDC, Circle, as well as Tether is super important. I think we're going to see that sooner rather than later.
You know, President Trump has made big strides that are very pro-crypto. It's got to be great for somebody like you. However, the price of, let's just say Bitcoin, which reached a high after the election of something like $107,000, is nowhere near that now. I think we're around 86,000 and change, but it's been a market drop. When do you foresee this moving back up? Because we've seen all kinds of wild projections of something like $250,000 per Bitcoin by the end of this year to people who say this thing's going down.
Yeah. When I think about that, your last guest, Larry Fink, talked about just taking the long-term view.
Right.
And I almost don't think about it in that kind of short-term time frame. I think about what are the macro trends playing out for the crypto industry, for the XRP ecosystem. XRP has been the best performing major crypto in the last 90 days. We think about it as what does that look like over the next 3 years? I'm very optimistic. I mean, Ripple just announced our largest acquisition, actually one of the largest acquisitions in the entire crypto industry to date. We announced it earlier this week on Tuesday.
He's very optimistic for the next 3 years. He did say 5 trillion. What was it? End of last year, or was it this year? I don't know, but either or, guys, it doesn't matter because again, long term, the only way is up, right? For XRP, that is. I don't know about any other coin. Sorry.
In the middle of tariff palooza, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with tariffs, but we're betting on where the world's going to be in 3 years, not what's going to happen in the next 6 months.
Would you have made that acquisition a year ago?
No, hard no. Look, the SEC in the United States and even other parts of the Biden administration, it was a coordinated attack across many different agencies. We're finding that more and more out now. You already highlighted it in your introduction. The IRS had hostile rules about crypto that really didn't make any sense. Banks weren't even allowed to reasonably custody crypto without having an equal offset to their balance sheet, which really makes no sense for a bank then to even partake in this industry. It's a real industry. People want, that administration wasn't listening to consumers. They weren't listening to the voter and what the voter wanted. We're now seeing a significant change across the board. And an acquisition like that would have made no sense a year ago, and it makes a lot of sense now.
That's so interesting. So Brad and Ripple acquired Hidden Road because of the Trump administration and how it's actually heading towards pro crypto, right? So that's why they did. Interesting. Acquired Hidden Road.
Is truly amazing. I am looking at you and I am remembering, was it 2 or 3 years ago? How long has this lawsuit been slapped on you guys?
December 22nd, 2020.
Okay,
so for 4.5
years. We've been talking, and I thought to myself, what's going to happen here? And you are on sort of the edge, the cusp of this just finally disappearing.
For sure. And it's good for Ripple, it's good for XRP, but it's also good for the whole industry. We want these industries not to be pushed offshore. And what was happening in the last 4 years is almost the opposite. We think it's safer to push them to offshore entities.
How many employees do you have? Let's let people understand how many people you employ.
Exactly, guys. He just said we think it's safer to push them offshore, right? To offshore entities. That's the least safe option. America should be the home, guys, right? Of the main exchanges, and these main exchanges should be able to offer services of what these quote unquote offshore entities are providing, right? So customers of the United States don't have to go and look for these offshore services, guys, right? Of cryptocurrency, obviously. But now I think America will be having a lot of crypto services that it never had before, right? It's going to be provided by America, which is a game changer because it's the safest option.
With our acquisition, we employ about 1,100 people now.
That's incredible.
And these are high-paying jobs. And for a period of time, as you and I have talked about before, for really the 4 years of the Biden administration, we did more hiring outside the United States than here at home. As a U.S. citizen, I grew up in Kansas. I'd like to hire people here. We have some of the best talent in the world here. But it made no sense to invest in a market where we couldn't sign customers. We couldn't actually see banks benefit from a better, simpler cross-border settlement for payments. These are technologies that really can help and revolutionize businesses, consumer experiences, but we have to be able to deliver them to these audiences.
Yeah, it was more than 10 years ago, I think, we had the Winklevoss brothers getting rejected for their push to have an ETF that allowed people to invest in Bitcoin, and it was a flat-out mic drop no. And now we have so many of those. And this week, an XRP ETF launched, correct?
It hasn't yet traded live in the United States, but it's been, we've had, I think, 11 different applications to go live with an ETF trading here in the United States. We do have it trading outside the United States. This is long overdue, and it's a step towards a more institutionalized, safer way for people to participate.
Once again, he stated outside the United States. Why is it always outside? Why can't it be inside? And it will be because of the Trump administration.
In these markets. Our acquisition this week, Hidden Road, we paid $1.25 billion for what's called a prime broker. And this allows even larger institutions like BlackRock, like the biggest Wall Street financial institutions, to come into this market in a way they understand with a safer prime broker to help clear transactions and a bigger balance sheet to do that. It's good for the whole industry.
So your last thought when it comes to the trade war, because people had been saying for a while that Bitcoin and crypto were a hedge against all kinds of concern about a falling dollar. I mean, even Larry Fink said on this network, on the show about a year ago, that it was a hedge against cratering currencies of whoever's country. That hasn't quite come into play. The dollar has been falling really precipitously over the past 5-6 days. In fact, it was continuing, at least as of this morning. It hit a 3-year low against the euro and a 10-year low against the Swiss franc. And crypto, at least today, is moving higher, but it moves all over the place. What drives the price of crypto?
Manipulation. Duh. But let's see Brad's response. He knows. I want to see what he's going to say, what he's going to lie about for just a split second.
I wish I had a clean answer to that question. Like any market, a lot of factors drive that. I mean, there was a period of time as some of the tariff dynamics were playing out where crypto was clearly outperforming the equity markets. But some people expected it to perform more like gold, where you're seeing all-time highs. I think people are still figuring out how that'll play out. I think the long-term value here is going to be very clear. It is a hedge against inflation. It is a dynamic where the more utility we drive in the crypto markets, the more we're going to see value accrete to that market.
I don't know if you do this, but I'm going to ask you anyway and push you. What is your price target for Bitcoin? Because Cardano blockchain founder predicted, as I said earlier, 250,000 by year end.
I will predict Bitcoin. I wouldn't predict XRP. It's too close to home. But I think 200,000 is not unreasonable. I think before I kind of said 175 around there. I think people underestimate how the largest economy in the world, the United States, went from headwinds, hostility, to tailwinds. And I think people are still not fully quantifying how significant that is to have the largest economy in the world, the largest asset managers in the world, go from relatively frozen out or hostile to now a friendly market that has sensible regulation that is thinking about pro-innovation here at home.
Brad, it's been a long road for you.
And there it is, guys. Okay, 200K Bitcoin price prediction. He didn't say when, but I think it's going to be happening end of this year or early next year. So the bottom of crypto should happen relatively soon by summertime. Not financial advice. I mean, things are looking amazing, right? With all these, with them setting the stage. And next, it's go time. Let's go. Not financial advice, but anyways, guys, so see ya.